Good afternoon. Welcome to the weekly livestock market update. I'm Brownfield anchor reporter Megan Grebner. With us, as always, to talk all things markets, University of Missouri, Scott Brown. Good afternoon, Scott.
Good afternoon, Megan.
It is a busy week for us. It's been a busy week for reports. Before we delve into all of that great information, let's recap what happened this week in the markets.
Yeah, starting on the cattle side again this week, we found another week where cash cattle really haven't changed much. So unchanged on the week. We've been about $1.14 for a few weeks here in a row on the live cattle side. Feeder cattle auctions this week were anywhere from steady to $3 higher. If you look at the futures side, the April live cattle futures contract was basically unchanged for the week. We did get nearly a $4 increase in the April feeder cattle futures contract, due in part by what was a May corn futures that was down nearly 8 cents. On the beef side, the choice box beef price down $6 this week. That still puts them $21 above where they were a year ago at this time. We really had weakness across the board in those box beef components. Ribs and chucks led the way lower this week. On the hog side, cash barrow and gilts were nearly $3.50 higher this week. The April lean hog futures contract was also up nearly $4 on the week. The pork cutout value gained $4.30 on what was really strength across the board there. The only exception was some lower ham prices.
I gotta say, we continue to watch those cash hog prices go higher and higher for the most part. And the only thing I can think about is I really hope producers are implementing some serious risk management tools.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, is there more upside potential in those markets? Perhaps there is, but at the same time, we're talking about prices higher than we've seen for a while, and taking advantage, or at least getting rid of some of the risk out of the market, might be a good strategy for some of the folks out there.
I want to talk before we get into some of these other reports. We talk about that risk management. We talk about upside potential, but we also talk about inputs. How much are we watching what's going on? I mean, we're getting ready to start planting season here in the US. There's been some challenges in South America as well. Does that ultimately maybe give us increased risk when it comes to input prices and not seeing those push a little bit higher as well?
Yeah, potentially. I see a lot over the last few days about just what's been happening to fertilizer prices and how high they've gotten, and what's that mean for a corn soybean acres fight that has to be beginning to unfold here in the U.S. I think we're going to try to plant a lot of acres of corn and soybeans. I always say for my livestock producers, I would want to think about how much risk do I want to have come the day of planting intentions. It's going to be interesting to see what USDA gives us here at the end of March related to what folks want to get in the ground. And then, of course, as we go through the season, I don't think this is going to go away in terms of risk on the feed cost side. We start talking about tough spring weather to get crops planted. That'll give us more upside potential on feed costs. We talk about a dry weather situation by the time we get in late June and July that could push us higher. At the same time, we have a good spring and a good growing season. We could see these feed costs go down from where they sit today. So think about that risk management strategy as well, knowing those prices can move both directions. And again, I go, pipeline stocks of soybeans at the end of this year is what USDA is giving us. And what's 1.5 billion bushels of corn ending stocks is also a lot tighter than we've been for a while.
It is going to be a big game of chess. I mean, it is every year, but I think even more so this year, especially as we're watching all sides of prices continue to move higher.
Yeah, and I always say from my watching spring training, let's hit some singles and doubles this year. Let's not try necessarily for that home run all the time, because those home runs also come with strikeouts at times.
Definitely higher batting average across the board. All right, let's get in and talk slaughter. We talk about these prices going up, but we're also looking at some lower slaughter numbers again this week. Are those maybe going hand in hand as well?
Yeah, I think so. You look at cattle slaughter, USDA is estimating for the week ending March 13th, 647,000 head of cattle. That's 18,000 below a week ago. It's up slightly from where we were a year ago, but really unchanged. On the hog side, a 2,583 million head number. That's up 20,000 head from a week ago, but that's down 56,000 head relative to a year ago. And just to make sure we don't forget to say this, year to date, both cattle and hog slaughter are down more than 3%. Hog slaughter down 3.8%, as a matter of fact. I think that's been part of what's been behind maybe some strength as well. Not the only reason we have strength, but we don't want to forget we've started the year running below year ago levels.
As we get into these USDA reports, let's start first monthly trade data, the numbers for the kickoff of 2021. And there's really kind of some optimism, I think, on the beef side when you look into those export markets.
Certainly more on the beef side, I think, Megan, than what we're going to talk about when we talk about pork. And so, yeah, January 2021, 246 million pounds of beef that left the United States, up slightly from where we were a year ago. So for me, you look at this, we got South Korea and China both showing higher numbers year over year. Those really offset then what was some lower numbers still to Japan, Mexico, and then a lot of other smaller markets. And so it's good to see the plus. And again, I'll keep reminding us that China is going to be important, I think, to that beef export number as we move forward. On the pork side, we were down 57 million pounds year over year. We came in at a 606 million pounds of pork that left the United States in January. And that lower number, we can almost throw all at the feet of China. China pork imports from the United States down 58.5 million pounds out of that latest report.
How interesting is it going to be watching China specifically moving forward? I mean, we talk about the upside potential or the endless opportunities on the beef side, but there's been reports of African swine fever again in China in different areas, which would lead me to believe that it is not under control in that country. Could we continue to see pork exports rebound and push higher throughout the year if they continue with that struggle?
Yeah, once again, certainly, given some of the news of late about ASF rebreaks and so forth, one could tell a story that this gets mighty positive on both sides in 2021. And again, all right, so we're slaughtering less hogs for the first 3 months here almost of 2021. And then on top of that, we have a situation where maybe exports out of the United States are going to be stronger than we think if ASF continues to batter the recovery of the China hog herd.
Supply and demand came out this week from USDA, and if there was ever a little bit of a snooze fest after the last few months, it definitely was this week.
Yeah, we'd have to get down into the decimal places to talk about, in most cases, changes in the projections for 2021. And here I'm more focused on the livestock side of the equation when I say that. But I think the one place that we should take note, as you and I have been talking about more positive news on the hog side, USDA did in fact increase their 2021 annual estimate for barrow and gilts by $5.50 this month. That increase happened despite what were very only minor changes in the rest of the underlying S&U there. But again, reminding us that we've been in a stronger situation than many would have thought as we started 2021. So good news there. USDA continues to keep those corn and soybean meal prices where they were in February, just reminding us that a lot higher than we were back in 2020, that's for sure, with what's a combination of the two, around 25% higher feed costs.
Retail prices out this week, and as we take a look at those numbers, some gains there as well.
Yeah, so we keep seeing retail prices sticky higher from things that happened to us in 2020. That choice beef retail price came in at $6.41 a pound, up a penny from where we were a month ago. But relative to a year ago, that's still a little more than 6% higher on that choice beef retail price. Similarly, on the pork retail side, $4.15 a pound for February of 21. That's 3 cents higher than January's number, and 7.5% higher than a year ago. So we continue to see higher retail prices and still pretty strong domestic demand despite those higher prices.
And that takes us into our last report. We're going to talk consumer sentiment, but man, it's really nice to see uh, it continue to bounce back, and the fact that people are becoming a little bit more optimistic in their spending habits as well.
Yeah, so we got preliminary data out for March of 2021, and the index continued to go higher. That index sets at 83.0 for March. For me, the interesting piece of this is we're up 8.1% in that overall consumer sentiment index relative to where we were in February. So really strong news there. Um, however, we want to keep it growing, right? So year over year, we're still down nearly 7%, but we've been gaining. And you think about some of our conversations back in the summer months of 2020, it's nice to be able to say we're only 6.8% below year ago levels. Um, to me, the piece of positive as well is just that index of consumer expectations up 9.6% month over month. That's only 2.8% below year ago levels, Megan. So a lot of folks expect that as we look ahead into 2021, things are only going to get better. I think as COVID cases continue to at least move slightly lower, but much lower than where we were 45, 60 days ago, there's a lot of optimism and a lot of excitement about the opportunities to get out and not be feeling like you're cooped at home for like much of 2020.
I think about the fact that, I mean, really, the world shut down a year ago. And our conversations and looking at whether it was when we were talking beef markets or we were talking hog markets in dairy as well, um, those following those following weeks and months early on in the pandemic, would you have imagined that we would have been able to rebound uh, as well as we have on the price side, on the livestock and in the ag side, uh, with how disrupted things were at that point?
So let's just say it's phenomenal. And again, to your point, we had so much uncertainty. We really didn't know how these markets were going to behave in what was a shutdown economy. And we can talk about shutdown from a number of perspectives, from packing plants to consumers staying at home. It is a phenomenal ability that we've had in agriculture to weather through what some of us probably for a period of time just wondered if we could weather through. And so it is a nice change. And I don't want to get overly optimistic as we look into 2021 further, but I do think there's a lot of pent up folks wanting to get out, getting engaged in their communities again. That to me only helps us from a food demand standpoint, meat demand standpoint. That could really help us here as we continue through 2021.
And not to mention, like, we see this restaurant and people being able, the economy reopening back up and people getting out to still have that option to have your groceries delivered, to have whatever delivery food service you want to use. It's got to be, it has to set us up for a pretty positive picture on the demand front, at least domestically, for the time being.
Yeah, so you're correct. I mean, it's going to be so interesting to watch what habits have changed long term. What habits do we go back to our old way? So yeah, we're going to go out and eat more in restaurants. There's going to be some folks that they're going to want to do that, but the ability now to talk about, hey, I can go to my local grocery store virtually, purchase what I want, and pick it up. Does that help meet demand more than otherwise would be the case? The fact that a lot of us had to learn how to cook products that maybe we hadn't for a long time, um, does that create overall stronger demand than otherwise would be the case? I don't think it hurts us in terms of what happens on the meat side. So we may have learned some valuable lessons that again will be positive for the longer term in terms of what U.S. consumers want.
And the fact that I never have to go into a grocery store again, especially with two little guys, is the greatest thing ever. I'm just gonna lay that out right there.
And I'm curious to look 5 years down the road, Megan. I think what we've started, it isn't done in terms of that whole delivery mechanism. and we can all speculate and have different ideas about this, but I again think the ability to deliver food, however it is certainly going to change our patterns of consumption going forward.
I muted myself this time.
Thanks for making me not feel like the only bad person here by muting themselves, Megan.
All right, that'll do it for us this week. It's been plenty for us to get into as we look ahead to next week. Just one report, but we might get into a few other conversations.
Yeah, that's right. So we finish the week next week with cattle on feed, but maybe we'll have a chance to talk some longer term outlook as some of my colleagues here at the University of Missouri have put out their 10-year baseline, and we can talk about those trends as well.
Fantastic. We will see you next Friday.
Sounds great, Megan.
We have our weekly livestock market update delivered to your email box every Saturday morning. Go to our website, brownfieldagnews.com. You can submit questions there or comments. And if you're watching us on Facebook Live as well, which we're also broadcasting there, you can ask questions as we go along. We're always up for throwing Scott some curveballs. And to check out all the great Brownfield podcasts, go to brownfieldagnews.com/podcast. Have a great weekend. I'm Megan Grabner for Brownfield.